today is September 4, 2025. And of course, the big day, Sandre, was yesterday, Sports Day as they call it, September 3, 2025. And certainly one would expect the elections to be at the forefront of every Jamaican's mind. I saw something this morning that said, listeners, that luckily the country can be united because track and field is right around the corner.
It is.
Tokyo, Japan,
It
the
is.
World Championships, which will act as the great uniter for Jamaicans over track and field. But ladies and gentlemen, it would be remiss of us not to get into what took place yesterday. September 3, 2025, and Your Holiness got what is called an unprecedented third term for the Jamaica Labour Party. He is the first Prime Minister to have beaten three rivals, that's Portia Simpson Miller, Peter Phillips, and now Mark Golding. He's also, as I've been reminding people, he was also the youngest Prime Minister to be sworn in this country, and at just 53 years old, he has the third term loading, as they've been calling it. And the pundits yesterday said a lot of things. They said, one, it's not going to be any honeymoon. They have to get right into the meat of the matter because there's more work to be done. Two, Mark Golding's PNP did very well to close the gap as they did, 34 to 29 seats. And of course, while we're having this conversation at this point in time, I do expect the magisterial recounts to happen. I do expect a lot of action in the courts throughout the next 5 to 7 days thereabout. And we cannot wait to see if that has any change as it relates to the preliminary results of the election. But what is certain and what is true and clear is that the Jamaican democracy is healthy. The Jamaican democracy, I've never seen this to this extent, at least, where so many laborites and comrades work together. So many of them fixing the same car, riding on the same bike, dancing together throughout this election season. And I think that ought to be commended. There was a lot of talk about bringing back the 80s and the violence of the 80s and the fear of that coming back. But having seen what I have seen, it is clear that throughout the jubilation, throughout the strife, throughout the rivalry that exists in the electoral process in this democracy, the Jamaicans have held it together. They have seen each other. They have stuck and stayed with each other. Yes, they have cussed out each other, as a matter of fact. But it must be commended. It must be commended that it was a violent-free election, that democracy has spoken, and how it works is how it works, and it is what it is. And at the end of the day, it is beautiful to my mind that I could see orange and green helping each other. I could see orange and green shaking hands, laughing, dancing, sharing the boom special, as they call it. I could see orange and green doing that in various parts yesterday, and that was major in my eyes. The next thing, West Rural St. Andrew, East Rural St. Andrew, and East St. Andrew. Three ladies that I'd want to highlight this morning: Juliet Cuthbert Flynn, Juliet Holness, and Favour Williams. The first woman, certainly of the Jamaica Labour Party, to hold that seat for 3 terms. Again, those seats are not easy seats to hold onto. And you will recall that when Juliet Cuthbert Flynn went into that West Rural seat, it was more so leading PNP at the time. A 3rd term with the numbers continuously holding steady and sometimes steadily increasing. Kudos to her. Juliet Holness's seat, I think the margin was in the 900s thereabout, almost 1,000. Kudos to her. But Favour Williams holding off the strong challenge of Patricia Duncan Sutherland. That, again, ladies and gentlemen, to my mind, is a standout. And let me also go a bit further into the central and to the west of the country. Tova Hamilton holding off Wickham McNeil, and Rhoda Moy Crawford holding down the fort,
Yeah,
holding down the fort,
yeah,
holding it off against Donovan Mitchell. I think those are spectacular wins in the JLP's book. They've held on to those seats, and that certainly should be commended. But let me go to the other side, because we can't just look at the coin one side, we have to look at the other side. A lot of people are in shock, and rightly so, because this person was on social media. They call her the carpet boss. I've heard other monikers of her. Anne Marie Vaz. She was beaten by Isaac Buchanan. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I think is the upset of the election. Certainly for the labor rights, the upset of the election. Isaac Buchanan went down there, was not down there for a full 5 or 4 years, but he went down there. I recall an interview he did with another media house where he said September 3rd was just a formality. But he went down there, and I said yesterday as well, I was not surprised because of what I saw down there as well. I don't think this has anything to do with him being that artist attorney as well. What I saw on the ground down there is that he got traction. And we have to remember the history of that seat as well, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah.
We have to remember the history of that seat.
I dare say,
And so,
Saeed,
give me a second, Sanjay. Let me just finish this thought. The history of that seat, from way back when up until now, if you check the history, once a good candidate is there in a general election, you would not have been surprised at the result. And I think that certainly was a big win for the People's National Party. As it relates to the West, the JLP touted how the West was won in 2020. The PNP came storming back. Hanover, gone. Westmoreland, gone. All back into the PNP's margin. And so that's my quick breakdown of the election. Certainly there's more we could get into, more I could get into, more details I could get into, but Sanjay is itching at the wicket to speak about his insights into the election. Sanjay?
well, Portland Eastern is what I want to look at really quickly. A lot of people forgot Portland Eastern, forgot how it came into the hands of the Jamaica Labour Party. They forgot the by-election that was held there. They forgot when Damien Crawford went up against Anne Marie Vaz and how that election was won, how a lot of people were upset about some of the comments made by Damien Crawford, how the entire Jamaica Labour Party went down there and they fought that battle for Anne Marie Vaz. They forgot all of that. They just now remember it as a space where Anne Marie Vaz was in. But what we have seen in this election is that a lot of spaces that had core PMP support, meaning these seats were considered safe seats for years, they just needed somebody to come in, to energize, to revitalize, to bring out the numbers that were always there. So even in her showing at this election, she did well. And Marie Vaz did well. But could those numbers stand up to a revitalized, energized People's National Party base in Portland Eastern? Well, obviously they couldn't have, because Isaac Buchanan went in and he pulled out the support, and you saw it right across the island in many seats that the Jamaica Labour Party probably thought they could have retained many of these seats. You saw that the base of the People's National Party, which is what would have been saying for months, that the base looks energized, the base looks like they're coalescing around this win. They are now coalescing around Mark Golding as the leader, and they have gone far and wide across the country, bus tour after bus tour, meeting after meeting, and in many of these seats, we saw that resurgence of PMP support. So even if, I know some people are saying it's upsets, even if it's the case that some of the MPs that were in for the first time, or even the second time, are good MPs, it doesn't change the fact that that core support is there. So those MPs would have had to ensure that their numbers are good enough to not just retain the seat, but to stave off the challenge of increased PMP numbers. Because even if you're a good MP, you still have to ensure you have the numbers, Jermaine, to win, because it's numbers that win the election. So Robert Montague is a standout as well, Western St. Mary. A couple months ago, right here on Nationwide, we spoke about St. Mary at length. As a matter of fact, there was even some interviews that were carried right here. I was on air from some persons who were about two or three of them, the majority of the interviews we got were disgruntled, and then there was one lady I said which would have given a fair assessment of the seat. But Robert Montague pulled through. He pulled through with well over 9,000 votes, and he staved off the challenge of Omar Woodbine. I am not really shocked because he is a career politician. He understands the ground. He's lost that seat before, and I'm pretty sure he vowed to himself that he would never lose it again. So St. Mary, a space that the PMP needed all, they did not get Robert Montague's Western St. Mary. And that leads me, Saeed, to the thought of what will the cabinet look like? In 2020, there's a lot to pick from. A lot of state ministers are now gone. So now the picks and the pickings are few. I think we can start thinking about what a cabinet will look like. And of course, as with 2020, I do expect the Prime Minister to announce his cabinet really quickly, because he'll tell you that he's ready to get back to work, to get back to business, and to ensure that the country stays on this track as, of course, they continue to lead the government for the third time back to back. But those are my preliminary thoughts on the elections. And of course, as I say, Western St. Mary, one that stood out as well.